Welcome everyone, A Guy Trying here, and today we're going to take a look at building a deck for Rin and Orchid in Altered TCG. But not just any deck. No, today we're looking to throw a party and invite all players to the Rinaissance Festival. This is actually one of my favorite decks to play because it's so much fun, and I was even able to win a Hero's Journey event at PAX Unplugged with it. So, let's get into it. Even though they're not really the center of our deck, let's start with our hero. Rin and Orchid are a Muna hero whose ability reads, when one of your expeditions moves forward due to forest, draw a card, then put a card from your hand in reserve. This ability will allow us to cycle through our deck quicker so we can find the cards we need, as well as fill up our reserve. It's important to note that if you advance due to multiple regions, you can still activate Rin if forest is one of them, and you are competing in forest. This ability can also proc twice if you are able to double advance. While similar heroes like Fen and Crowbar and Trace and Rossum can also generate similar card advantage through their abilities, Rin and Orchid don't have the same consistency as them in the late game. In order to bypass this, we'll look to use Lyra Festival as our win con and take advantage of our early cycle. For any successful soiree, you'll need to assemble a strong guest list. We're looking for spontaneous people who can disappear at any moment, people who will stay and celebrate into the early hours, and of course, people who are ready to party until they pass out. If we have a character with fleeting, another with anchored, and yet another who's asleep, we can congratulate ourselves on a triumphant festival. Now, 1 is the loneliest number and 2 is company, so we'll need all 3 on 3 separate characters for it to really be a party. And at dusk, if these conditions are met, we'll win before we have to worry about any of those pesky expeditions. Let's start with our deck core. These are the cards I think should be included in every iteration of the deck and should be baseline for any list. Once we have the core completed, we'll move on to some options to fill in the remaining slots that can be changed to fit your playstyle or whatever uniques you may own. We'll start with the Guests of Honor. These 3 will be our main choices when it's time for the festival's win condition, as they are cheap to play and have the statuses required. Harvester and Shroom gain anchored from anywhere, which means they can also be used to keep fleeting in play over multiple turns. Kodama has built-in sleep from hand, can give another character anchored through support, and can even be used as strong stats from reserve if you need to stall an opponent. These are some of our most powerful cards in our guest quest, so we'll want to be careful with them. Up next, we have our Punctual Pals. We're hoping they arrive early and maybe even help set up the party. Daughter of Yggdrasil's stats will overwhelm an expedition and hopefully proc Rin's ability to draw a card on top of the card she draws us from her own ability. After that, she can be played from reserve to either win in forest or block an expedition. Muna Druid stats are not as impressive as Daughter of Yggdrasil's, but the 3 in forest can help us get an early advancement for Rin, and his support can give characters anchored. And finishing out our core, a spell that is essential to our plans. Sleep will be the hardest status to come by most of the time, with only Kodama reliably gaining it. Beauty Sleep allows us to turn any character into part of our win condition, and can also be used to stall your opponent when needed. If there's any card you should make sure you hold on to, it's Beauty Sleep. And that's our core. You should be able to scan the QR code on the screen to take you to my copy of the deck core on Altered.gg. That way you can duplicate it and already have the base when you start to finish the deck yourself. With that, we'll move on to some card packages that can finish out our deck. We'll begin our options with the status noticeably lacking from our core, Fleeting. I personally don't value Fleeting that highly because any character can get Fleeting, and we're hoping to have a good amount of cards in our reserve throughout the game. That being said, Capella training is incredibly powerful, allowing us to pass priority and either remove card advantage from our opponent or give one of our characters Fleeting. Same with Lyra Cloth Dancer, but she provides a body for another status. I'm putting Coppelia in the Fleeting Friends package because it's hard to reliably gain access to her sleep. There are currently 3 ways to put cards into your reserve from hand in Muna: Rin's ability, Kellen Elemental, and uniques that have it as an extra cost. Rin's ability triggers after dusk has happened, so we'd miss our chance to win with Festival that turn, but happens before rest, so then Coppelia will attempt to go to reserve and lose sleep. She will remain on the board with Fleeting for the following turn though. If you opt for Kellen Elementals or uniques that put cards from hand into reserve, then Coppelia feels better, but still not too consistent in a deck that already struggles with consistency. Our Anchor allies can give us additional access to Anchor if needed. The reason Muna Druid is in our core over Caregiver is because the lack of a forest stat, but Caregiver's 1-cost body can be helpful when we're trying to finish out the game. Meditation training is pretty self-explanatory, but I normally go for anchoring through supports when possible, just because it can be hard to have the mana on our festival turns. Because we're so reliant on specific cards to win, we'll want to call on our cycling companions to help us find what we're looking for. Kitsune fills our hand, Merchant fills our reserve, both while offering a body to help the festival if needed. Harvest has been an MVP in my opinion, and I almost put it in the core, but I think there are some people who won't want to run it. Harvest lets us just throw so many cards into our reserve to find the pieces we need, but it doesn't help our board state on any given turn, and we will toss most of the cards we see from it. I've ended turns with 6+ cards in my reserve, and I'm okay with discarding as much of my deck as I can if it finds me my guests of honor. Sometimes a party can get a little out of hand, and when your opponent's characters start to put a damper on your evening, our buff bouncers can help calm them down. Yong-Su and Aja provide strong stats that can win or tie expeditions throughout the game. Aja's 4 cost is rough, but the fact that she ramps us and can hopefully activate Rin helps ease the pain a bit. And when things get too rowdy, we can use our Raucous removal to quash the situation. While I wouldn't normally run both of these cards, Cloth Cocoon and Mana Reaping are both strong options to help us survive until it's time for our party. And finally, we have some other lavish landmarks that can help us add some ambiance to our party. Bountiful Meadow will smooth out our cost curves throughout the game, and if we decide to upgrade to the rare, it'll even give us an opportunity to resupply. The Spindle helps reduce our win conditions weakness to removal. We need 3 different characters out as well as our Lyra Festival to meet our win con, and removing any single piece will stop us in our tracks. While the Spindle doesn't give our festival tough, it will make our opponents pay more to get rid of our characters. Which brings us to uniques. We're mainly looking for cards that will either let us draw/resupply, or cards that give characters statuses, especially asleep. If there's any specific character I would be on the lookout for, it'd be Coppelias that can be played for free when they go to reserve from Expedition. Because they've been replayed after rest has happened, they will keep both fleeting and asleep until rest the following day. For my uniques, I have these 3. I absolutely love my Muna Merchant, who can become Harvest on a body from anywhere. My Esmeralda can also resupply, and has Beauty Sleep from reserve. She also lets me put a card from my hand into reserve, so I can have another chance at a fleeting character or at an anchored support ability. And finally, I have my Lyra Cloth Dancer, who I see as the weakest of my uniques in this deck. She can help boost my characters from reserve, while also giving characters fleeting. I found her most helpful in the mid-game to reduce my opponent's cards. It was actually seeing that I had some good uniques for the Rin Fest that got me to start playing and working on the deck. With all that done, this is my finished deck list. The QR code should take you to the deck in Altered TCG, but there's also a link in the description. The Rinaissance Festival is an incredibly fun deck, but the thing you'll have to worry the most about is consistency. It can be hard to assemble all the pieces you'll need, and when you're hoping to win, you'll often have to have redundancies and assume at least one of your pieces will be removed. Lyra Festival's 4 cost means that it's hit by every spell that can target permanents, so you'll often need to be patient and have backup plans. The deck can high roll and win on turn 3, but we can't rely on that. Like a good surprise party, we need to wait until just the right time to jump out. Try to bait out removal early on, and be prepared to fold out of a round early in order to save resources. And no matter what, remember to have fun with it. This is a party after all. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, but if you made it this far, just know that I'm happy you stayed with me this long. I was working on a Sigismar guide, but decided to push that aside after winning at PAX U. I'm still working on it and hope to release it before too long though. I'm also working on another Basics of Altered video, so be on the lookout for that. With Trial by Frost a month and a half away, we'll be heading into reveal season before too long. I've started to compile a spreadsheet that lists all the reveals we've seen so far, and I put a link to that in the description so that people can see. While I want the sheet to be helpful, please don't use it as a substitute for supporting Altered content creators. The community is pretty small right now, and we should all work together to see that it thrives. That's all for now, but I hope we see each other again.